January 1st, 1892. Step into the cold, blustering day with me and imagine what it must have felt like to be Annie Moore, a 17-year-old girl from Ireland, who would later be known as the first immigrant to be granted access into the United States from Ellis Island. Nearly 64 years and roughly 12 million immigrants later, Ellis Island, the first federal immigrant processing station, closed. But the doors of immigration were not ever to be closed in America up to the current day. According to the Department of Homeland Security, an immigrant is defined as an alien admitted to the United States as a lawful permanent resident. End quote. So in this discussion, we're going to be talking exclusively about documented, legal, permanent status immigrants who have come to invest and work in the United States on a green card. We're not talking about U.S. citizens. So why exactly is it so important to understand the process of immigration, as well as all the tedious correlated statistics that revolve around immigration? See, while Ellis Island marked a new era of official immigration in the United States, all of us are really, unless we're 100% Native American, an immigrant or come from an immigrant background, just by nature of the fact that our families, eventually down the family tree, would have come from a different country to stay in the United States. So really, the issue of immigration is usually a topic that is talked about, joked about, looked at in family trees, but it can also be a very sensitive and hard topic to discuss. Very few of us have personally had a loved one damaged or killed by a terrorist that was an immigrant, but behind those are real names, faces, and unfathomable loss. And then there's also people who come from an immigrant background where they're an actual immigrant themselves, and they've gone through the paperwork recently, and they know the frustrations of being separated from their families, being pushed aside as an outcast, or even just being stereotyped with the immigrants that give immigration a bad name in America. So the purpose of me speaking on immigration in this speech is to answer three key questions. These questions keep coming up again and again in politics, and so I think it's important to analyze. First, how on earth does a foreign-born person actually become a U.S. immigrant? And then I also want to talk about in what ways immigration can actually hurt the United States economy today. And when you talk about how immigration might hurt the United States economy, that leads clearly to a third question, which is, if immigration hurts the United States economy, why has immigration continued on as a major policy that's constantly being reformed and added and subtracted in the United States today? So, how exactly would a modern-day Annie Moore applicant be granted access to permanent status within the United States? Well, there's basically two main ways that this would happen. The first one is the diversity lottery system. Now, according to Stephen Camarota, who's with the Center for Immigration Services, he said in 2017 that, quote, enacted in its current form in 1990, the lottery was meant to increase diversity by allowing more immigration from countries that send relatively few people to the United States. According to Stephen, it basically just requires a high school education or 2 years of work experience in a job. Now, the second way that you can come into the United States is through the employment-based categories. There are 5 of these categories, and the Immigration Act of 1990, which formed a lot of the policies for immigration today, said that these categories are for immigrants with, quote, extraordinary ability, outstanding researchers, or certain multinational executives and managers, skilled workers, and religious workers. So these 5 categories provide a wide spread of criteria which would grant the average immigrant desiring to come in to work to America, I guess, an arguably easy access to our country. And then the final way to come in to the United States is through chain migration, and that's not its own section, but basically what chain migration is if your dad or mom gets a job in America through the diversity lottery system or the employment-based categories, that means that grandma and the kids can come along with them. Now, when my brother married a girl from China and they both came to the United States, I was very thankful for chain migration because they had a 4-month-old son at the time, and he wouldn't have been able to get a work-based visa or something like that. And so, even though sometimes chain migration has a negative connotation, it basically just means family-based migration, and it can be a very positive thing. However, immigration does have its flaws, and it's important to look at those flaws and consider them seriously. U.S. immigration and migration mainly gets its negative connotation for job competition. There are other things like terrorism or welfare, but the main issue today in politics is job competition. According to George Borges, who's an American economist at Harvard Kennedy School, he said in 2016 that, quote, when the supply of workers goes up, the price that firms have to pay to hire workers goes down. Wage trends over the past half century suggest that a 10% increase in the number of workers probably lowers the wage of that group by at least 3%. And that's even after the economy has fully adjusted, end quote. What this means in practical life is this. Some 50,000 immigrants come into the United States per year through the diversity lottery system alone. To put a picture to your mind in this, imagine the entire Tiger Stadium in Detroit filled up, and then every single student, plus some from University of Michigan Flint, dumped into the center field at the Tiger Stadium. All those people added up together, plus a little bit more, would add up to how many people are brought into the United States per year just through one system. Altogether each year, there's over 33 million immigrants that come into the United States. Now, if there's a certain amount of jobs in the United States to be had, and we're having 33 million immigrants come into the United States each year, that creates a competition between American workers and foreign-born immigrants. When you have several people competing for the same job, it has been statistically proven that the employer tends to lower the income rate. And so that's a huge negative ongoing debate that immigrants might be stealing jobs, and if they're not stealing jobs, they're lowering the income rate for Americans. So that's just one argument against immigration. We get it. Immigration may or may not have bring about lower paying jobs. It may have issues and flaws in the system. But if there are these flaws, why is immigration such a big deal today? Why is it ongoing? Why are we constantly allowing people to come into the United States? And I'd like to read a quote. Let's see. That's according to Leadership in the World, dated September 12, 2017. It says this: more than half the billion-dollar companies in the United States are founded by an immigrant. Each of these, on average, creates 760 new jobs. So, end quote. So think about this. Apple, Tesla, Yahoo, Instagram, Uber, PayPal, these companies stimulate both American and immigrant American jobs, not to mention a positive domino effect on the American economy as a whole. According to the Minpost, in an article written in April of 2017, they said this, quote, our foreign immigration population is younger and more likely to be working than native-born Americans. They help rebalance what would otherwise be a quickly aging population that would have difficulty supporting the Social Security and other older age entitlements, end quote. So, in conclusion, I do hope that this information has not only brought the basic facts of how immigration works, but has also opened up your scope of mind as to how it actually affects the United States economy, either in a positive or negative light, both ends of the spectrum, basically. There is one last thing as you think about all this and wrap it up that will tie all this together, and I want to leave you with this quote. According to the inscription on the beautiful Lady Liberty in New York, erected in 1875 and composed by poet Emma Lazarus. This is why immigration continues in the United States. Quote, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. End quote.